Easy Huey in the news. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Okay. Well, today's episode is on being present in the midst of a storm. So, I've realized people always just listen from where they're at. They don't always necessarily hear what you're saying or where, like what you intend to be said. It's just more of where they're listening from. And when you're in the midst of a storm, it doesn't have to be a major storm. It can be something like, it's raining outside, but it's not like howling winds and the fear that your roof is going to be ripped off. But when you're in that, you can be present to specific aspects, right? Like how you got into the storm, or the really taking stock of the chaos that you're starting to recognize, or the disheveled reality you're starting to recognize. So there's nothing wrong with having a focus on a specific part of what's going on in your life. There is nothing wrong with that. Now, our brains are so incredibly complex and complicated that it has the ability to autopilot its way through figuring out challenges that you're dealing with. Now, without you needing to sit there and be like, okay, how am I going to think next? It's like you get pulled by your thoughts instead of you push your thoughts. Now, the pushing the thoughts is where you take your rational mind over your irrational, where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to stop thinking this way. I'm going to stop putting myself into that situation in my mind that continues to cause me distress. I'm personally an advocate of taking on the challenges that I'm dealing with instead of avoiding them, masking them, or doing whatever in order to try to know. And so is your character. It's up to you what you do with it. If you pulled, if every diamond had an option on whether or not be forged into becoming that thing, in the process, most would likely stop. And that if they had that kind of sentience, like a human being has the autonomy to make decisions like that. Diamonds don't, obviously. But there are people that you will come across in your life that have that personality that is just an absolute diamond to you. You're like, this person is incredibly precious. They're inspiring. They are so many things that I admire, that I want myself and my own characteristics. That would make my life even more fulfilling. It's usually the way that we talk to ourselves about traits or values that we see in somebody else we admire or want for ourselves. Seem to project that would make life more fulfilling. So how you create that is by being present in the storm. For myself, there was a world breaker dragon that I gave birth to. Now, again, if you're not familiar with the dragon and what I'm referencing, I'll give you a general and quick overview. But if you're more interested in finding out more about it to see if it has more workability for you and its application in your life, you're going to want to go back to the episode, and there's several episodes I talked about dragons, but in this one in particular, go back to Truth to Integrity. It's an emotional video for me, but I don't care anymore. I'm just putting out what's true to me, and hope that it gives people opportunities and perspectives that change where they're at in such a way that they're more capable of changing the future, and becoming more mature in the process. The dragon is, in the general overview, is real simplistic. A dragon is something that you're afraid of. You're afraid of taking it on. There is something behind it, and that it's a great treasure if you can get past it. But all you typically see is the fear that comes from this thing. And mine happened to be not steel manning a conversation with my previous girlfriend. Not actually having the conversation and saying back to her what I heard her say to me. And by not doing that, created this little dragon. Because there was more to be said. And we both used the same language that we agreed was an agreement, but that language, turns out that there was different interpretations to what we were both saying to each other at the same time. And our need to kind of move through and past that conversation was the thing that gave birth to the dragon, and later that dragon became a world breaker. The world breaker is just something that destroys the reality that you thought you were living within. So that was mine. And I sat through that storm after. And it's incredibly difficult to face the chaos that comes from, these major storms, right? These storms that just dissolve the reality that you thought you were living within. Like, it takes something to face it, because the emotional upheaval is so incredibly challenging that it leaves you feeling depleted, questioning your reality, questioning who you are, questioning even whether or not the future has promise. So being present is the forging of the diamond that you are, right? Like, so you already have traits that somebody admires, and somebody will admire those traits so much that they wish themselves to have that, whatever it is. And you may give it no value, no credence, because you're just unaware. We all are so incredibly dynamic that you're going to have these things. We all have something that somebody cherishes. And it's not on the superficial side of cherishing it that if I only had that, then, I'll be satisfied for the moment. They look at it, and I personally have done the same thing, and look at these things and say, that's something that would create the deepest sense of satisfaction and enrichment in my life if I were to have those skills, that trait. Once you've identified you have that desire, then start creating the trait. Start working on what you currently have and build out. But being present in the storm is the thing that will give you that insight. Just be present. Taking action isn't necessary all the time. Being present doesn't mean you're taking action. Being present can simply mean you're just observing what is happening. But try not to cover your eyes. Do what you can not to cover your ears. Holding your tongue may be the best thing to do, and it may not. But be present. Okay. Well, that's it for today's episode. Your pleasure. I greatly appreciate everyone that watches these. I always enjoy the feedback. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with people in your life that you would like to start a conversation with, that this could be the icebreaker, and build from here. I'm not saying that I'm absolutely correct in the most absolute sense. I'm saying that this is how you start discussions that can make a real difference. Even if I'm wrong, it still can break free of silence or a pattern that you've become so incredibly used to not addressing. So with that, thank you again for watching. I'm your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Until next time, please stick with me. Creating the life that you want is not always easy, but it is absolutely worth it. It's sticky, it's not easy, but stick with me. We'll create that together. Until next time, see ya.